Hey, how's it going everyone? I'm Matthew, aka EZBOT, and today we're going to go over the Performance Mixer Template I made for the Electron Octatrack version 2.0, which is currently in Beta 3, even though I've released Beta 2, but I'll be working on Beta 3 right now. So I do want to get some levels and make sure that everybody can hear stuff like the machines that I'm playing with here. So it looks to me like the volumes are all good. My voice might even be too hot. Not sure exactly, but it could be. Don't know if I have anyone in the chat yet. Maybe I will clip this beginning and, for people that are watching it later. So essentially what the Performance Mixer template is it takes an Octatrack Mark I or a Mark II and turns it into an effects box for up to 4 different inputs. So it can either be 4 mono inputs or 2 stereo inputs. The way that I like to do it is 2 stereo inputs, and the way the mixer functions is, well, you're gonna see there's 3 boxes here. My camera's a bit zoomed in because we're focusing on the Octatrack today. But the way it functions is that we have a percussive side of things that is on the left side. It doesn't have to be on the left side in front of you, but it's going to be going into inputs A and B. And then we have a melodic side of things, and that's going to be on the right side. This template has 64 different effects that you can work with. And they are a lot of fun. Let me reload this project really quick. And so essentially what I'm going to go over today is a ton of the effects, or I'm going to go over probably pretty much all the effects, give you an idea of how to use them, a little bit on how they're built. I'm going to save how the effects are built for another day. Just make sure that this is... Okay, so I'm going to rename this part really quick because it got its name changed from the last time I was playing with it. So we're calling this part Remixer. And we'll just save that really fast. And save all. Okay, cool. So we're going to go over quite a few things. I'm going to give you a little preview of how many different effects there are. I see that there's quite a few people in the chat now talking about stuff. We're going to go over all the effects. And like I said, I'm not going to discuss exactly how they're built. I'll tell you, because it's just too long. It's not because I'm going to hide it from you. If you want to know how these effects are built, you can simply hold down your scene and look and see what tracks are being affected and go through and check on the effects. If you want to, an insight into how I built these effects. That's the way to do it. So I'm going to give you a little preview of all the different effects so you can read them for those of you who aren't a part of my Patreon or haven't bought the template off of Ko-fi. And I'm all good with people buying the template off Ko-fi. That's why I put it there. A lot of people don't like subscriptions. They don't want to do the Patreon thing, but they want access to this. That's how you get access to it. You can buy it there. It's a one-time purchase. And then if you want it again, you have to buy it again or join the Patreon because this is the way it is. But let me show you these effects really quick. And if my voice is too loud, because it looks to me like it's clipping a little bit. Let me just turn it down a little. All right, here we go. So this is my Patreon. Oh, looks crazy like that. Maybe we don't want to do it that way. Hang on a sec. Yeah, maybe that won't show it the way we want it to. Well, I guess we're not going to look at it that way. I'll just have to tell you what these effects are. Let me open up the file really quick, because there is a ton of effects to go over. And hello everybody, thanks for coming by, and thank you everyone for the support. It means the world to me, and it makes it so I can do stuff like this, like build a 64 effect scene performance mixer template, because it's a lot of work to do. That's the old template. All right, here we go. Maybe I could even set this up so that it shows... No, that's not going to work. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to give you some demonstrations of these effects Let me just check up on everybody. Your Patreon looks great, bro. Okay. Hello from New York City. Chris, hi. SURCO, what's up? Hello. Mark. All right, what's up, Mark? What's up, Danio, Scott, Brad, Drowning in Reverb, Jeff, Michael Walsh, Autograph, Troy. So good to see everybody. Thanks for showing up. This is going to be the perspective. We have another camera that we can work with if we need to, just so you can see these boxes a little bit more, but we're probably going to stick to this camera here. And I'm going to tell you about how this works. So this first scene, we have, the way I designed the template is we have 4 parts. You go to Bank A, Pattern 1, and select it. After you've uploaded the project from, you download it and you move it over to your set in your Octatrack, and then you just open the project. It's called Performance Template 2.0, or Performance Mixer. And you load it up, and then you're gonna plug in your percussive side of things into one input, and you're gonna plug in your melodic side of things into the other input, and then send MIDI clock out from one of the boxes external to the Octatrack. The Octatrack is not master clock because these effects need to be synced and they need to stay static. So the effects change, the tempos of the effects change, the sync of them change. The sync of the effect changes based on what it hears from the clock of these devices. So anything but the Octatrack can be the clock, but it has to receive transport and clock. So that's important that you know that. We're using 4 different parts. Four parts with 16 scenes. We're using 3 different flex tracks. They're all used as recorder tracks, so they're recording audio, and then the effects are sometimes adjusting that recorded audio to create an effect. So a lot of times you have to prepare to do some of these effects. Some of the more basic stuff like reverb, chorus, delay, filters, those things, they require 0 preparation. Freeze delay, the Daft Punk effect, tape stop effect, none of that stuff requires any forethought other than just timing it with your music. Some of the effects actually require you to have armed a record buffer prior to using the effect, otherwise it will sound whack. Like reverse, for instance. So you can see here on this tape is pretty much accurate. I know it just probably looks a little crazy to you, but it's pretty much accurate to what you're going to find in part 1, which is called Remix, which is my original performance template for the Octatrack. We now have 3 other parts. We have Explorer, which is part 2, which has got some interesting effects that I found paired really well with modular synthesis, with anything really, but conceptually speaking, it's got a lot more explorative features and effects. Then we have Garage, which is kind of like, it's got a lot more distortion effects to it, some more lo-fi kind of stuff. And then we have Techno, which says tech on here, but it's the techno part, which has things like phaser, lots of different filters, build-ups, reverb build-ups, delay build-ups, lots of high-pass filter kind of things, some loopers, stuff that you would find that would be really well for transitioning from part to part in techno and creating build-up and, you know, creating drama and suspense. All of the parts share some of the same features. On every one of the parts, you're going to find a low pass and high pass filter and a master looper, no matter what. So you'll always have the option of sampling what you're playing for your audience, letting that audience listen back to 4 bars of your music while you're muting and unmuting stuff on your machines. Maybe I can even get a little bit of the other machines in the mix here, if people are able to see it at all. So I'm going to be moving kind of fast, but this will be on YouTube, so you guys can rewatch it when you need to, because there's a lot to cover, and I don't want this to go on for hours and hours and hours. Also, you guys are welcome to do all sorts of chatting and everything that you can. My attention span for the chat is going to be pretty limited during the explanation of this stuff. Afterwards, I will go into more of a question and answer section. Yeah, so just keep that in mind, that if, don't be offended if I don't respond to your questions here, because I'm not going to be paying that much attention to what you have to say at the moment, but I will in post. Okay, let's go over some effects. This first effect here is a reverb buildup effect. So I'm going to choose a pattern, well, preferably something. Okay. going to turn that bass line off. Let me see if I can find something that has... Okay. So as I'm preparing this right now, I'm just finding some music that I think would be appropriate to use with the template right now to demonstrate the effects well. So what I was looking for was some music that was written with drums on the left and melodic stuff on the right, and I've been playing with the Syntakt a lot, and the Syntakt does melody and drums so well that it has been throwing me for a loop, like where do I want it in my production. So I'm still figuring that out. So there's a lot of music in this current setup that with like everything on just one box. But I believe that this track is using the Digitone and the Syntakt. So I'm gonna mute a bunch of stuff. Okay, I think that the music is ready to go. So what I'm going to demonstrate right now is using the reverb buildup to transition to another effect. Or maybe I'll just run through this whole set of effects really fast, and then we'll do a couple demonstrations. So again, this is part 1 remix, and we're going to go through every single one of these effects, and I'm going to use them. So this is a little bit of a light reverb buildup. It also grabs the audio and loops it on the percussive side. So what happened right there is we did a reverb buildup, it high passed the percussion, and then it added a looper, a delay looper using a delay buffer to loop the percussive side of the music so that you can mute and unmute things without anyone knowing that you're doing that because it's just looping over and over. So you can use it as a way to transition to either a new song or to just a new part of your song. This next one is the echo freeze. You can also use that to transition. So we add a new element. So I just brought in another hat. I can take that hat out so you can hear it. Here's the Daft Punk effect. You can bounce between the effects. Some of them work really well. You can find nice little combos. Okay, so this next effect, after the Daft Punk effect, which is a half-note looper, so you can use a half-note looper on your entire production and use that to transition to another song or just as an effect in the song. If you don't, the way I have the effects designed, if you don't bring the crossfader all the way to the end, things that are using delay buffers, they don't engage until they hit the end, and that's on purpose. That way you can use them as a filter and slowly adjust them, and then it will loop right at the very end. So that's why they're set at 127. You have to reach 127 in order for the looper to engage. All right, so this next effect here is called Rev. This stands for reverse. For the reverse effect to work, we have to arm our record buffers. You can either hold track 7 and hit yes, because this is where our master record buffer is. This is going to be recording a 4-bar loop. You can see the little plus symbol, it's recording. There it is. And I can go to this all scene here, and now we're listening to a recording of it. Or I can use the reverse here, and now we have a live reverse. So a lot of cool effects that you can play with. Okay, so I hope that you liked that one because that's a fun effect. Now what we're going to play with is the LFO effect, which is on most of them that are called LFO, they're using some sort of rhythmic LFO to create a stuttering of the frequencies. So, you know, it's a nice build up, and it keeps the rhythm going, but also gives people a break a lot of times. In this case, not so much. It's just a great way to transition from part to part. So that's a looper. Let me show you how you would use that. So say I take this kick and this snare out, or I'll take these hats out. And I brought them in while it was looping. So that's the idea behind that. These effects are meant to allow you to move around your music without having to do that on the Digitac or Digitone or Syntact or whatever box you're using, because this works with any boxes that you want. But you don't have access to those things, and you don't have access to these effects on a DJ mixer either. So, especially not 64 of them. And I'm always working on them and crafting them, making them a little bit better, adding some new stuff. I have some new stuff to share tonight for those of you who already have the template and want to get to go a little deeper into it. We're going to do that with what I call expert mode, which isn't completed yet, but I'll give you an example of why it is that way. And it's just because it's a lot harder, but the results can be quite magical. But let's continue with the effects. So then we have pump, which stands for sidechain pumping. I also have this little pump sticker here. That's because if I'm on track 4 and I go to the LFO page and I turn this de-encoder up, I can create sidechain pumping without using a scene. So you can always just turn this up on track 4 with the LFO using the de-encoder to get sidechain pumping of your melodic side. Or you can engage the scene here, number 6, for pumping, and this will add reverb pre the envelope that's cutting out the frequencies, creating the ducking effect. So here's the sidechain pumping effect. You can hear that it sounds great. It's a sidechain ducking effect. And mind you, you can be recording this. So I can just hit yes and arm all my record buffers. And now it's recording this sidechain pumping sound. And then I can switch to this scene. We can reverse it. Cool. So that's pump and the sidechain pumping effect. Then we have this low pass filter here, which is low passing the percussive side. Let me grab my mouse. I need to make sure I'm reading this one correctly. There's so many effects that I don't have them all memorized. I have a cheat sheet to remind myself. So this is a 12 dB bandpass filter. This next one is a high pass with some reverb. You can take your kick out here. Bring in a new sound. Okay, so this next one is low pass and high pass. Like I said, you're going to find low pass and high pass on every single one of the parts. So you have 8 low pass, high pass filters. That way you're not scrambling to switch to a new part to get to a high pass or low pass filter, because you need them all the time for electronic music. They're just super important. I do, however, have different versions of the high pass, low pass filter on every single one. On the techno one, there's a really high resonance, so you're able to get kind of it sounds good though. It's not a ear piercing. On this one, it's a little bit more of an even level. This is something that I just prefer using because it's easier on my ears. So we have our high pass, or start with our low pass, I'm sorry. Sounds good. You could use a drum fill here. I was using the fill condition on the Syntact. The next one is a high pass filter. Sounds just fine. If you're familiar with your Octatrack, you know what a high pass filter sounds like on the Octatrack. All right, now we have a lo-fi effect. This is a master effect. You know, play with your encoder. Okay, the next one is the tape stop effect. If you want to know how to make the tape stop effect, it's there's a tutorial on my YouTube channel. So this is an effect you can use to close out a song. This is an effect you can use to move to a next song. This is an effect you can use to move to a breakdown. Let me give you an example of moving to a breakdown. So this breakdown is going to be a 1/5 modulation. We're going to take our whole song, we're going to move it down a fifth. There it is. That sounds really rad to do it. And I do it at every show that I play, and it always gets people happy. Like, people cheer every time this happens. The tape stop into a modulation. You'll find this on a couple other projects. So you can go right back into your song from there. Okay, so these last three are the infamous loopers. And so this is what's creating all the superpowers for the Octatrack to do the performance template. So what we do is on scene 14 in Remix, you have a record buffer on 5 that is recording your percussive side of things. So it's recording whatever is plugged into inputs A and B, and it lets whatever's plugged into inputs C and D play freely. And also you can affect that machine, freely with the effects. But a scene will be engaged, so as soon as you move the crossfader away. Also, something to keep in mind, I have scene A muted. You're going to have to mute your scene. If you don't mute one of your scenes, you can pick whichever side you want to mute to, but if you don't mute one of these scenes here, which is just function, hit A, you're always going to be engaged in one of these effects. So that's important. Mute one of your scenes. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to engage my record buffers, and I'm going to record everything just by hitting yes, and it's going to engage every record buffer I have set up currently on the Octatrack. And I'm going to mess around with the freeze buffer here, which is the freeze delay buffer, the delay control that you can find by going function and hitting down, going into delay control. So this delay right here will engage a freeze delay on track 1. So it's going to freeze the incoming audio of the left side, and I'm going to record that, but not record it doing it to this machine. So I could actually still play with the digitone and do some sort of, build-ups or breakdowns manually right on the digitone. So, arm. I can fade over. There's what I just did on the syntax side of things, the digitax side of things, but I still can adjust my digitone. If I want, I could even freeze the digitone. So now I'm freezing the digitone live. This is a cool effect, right? Just grabbing a piece and repeating it musically, So that exact concept is duplicated on 15, except for in reverse. So it lets the digitact or whatever, so it's A and B side play freely while the digitone is recorded. And then you can do this same thing in reverse. So you could just... I'm not going to demonstrate that one because it's just going to take up time because you already understand what's going on. So now this last one is the record all. So this is what you want to use all the time. You can either, like I said, to arm these independently, you can hold them down and hit yes to arm the triggers, or you can just hit yes if your Octatrack is set up that way. I used to not have it set up that way because it was just too easy to screw things up on the Octatrack. But I switched. I switched to this because it's so fast, and I just remember to do it more often. I'm just hitting yes. It's just the problem is that you can accidentally record over things you didn't want to if you're not very studious about it and intentional. So you got to be a little careful. But anyway, my stuff is armed. Let's have the music play. So now we have this master record buffer doing it. You know what it's recording? Sorry, I didn't want it to be recording while the scene was engaged. So you don't want to do your master recording while this is engaged on that scene, on any of these scenes here. There we go. So I can do whatever I want here. We can move to a new song. I was hitting stop on my digitac out of just because I've been doing this all day. So honestly, let's do it again really quick so I can demonstrate that to you. So we have this recording. Now if I wanted to, we could add some new elements or move to a new song. So I added a bunch of new elements. Sorry, I kept hitting stop. Just so much octatracking. Okay, so that covers the first part. This is the original remixer performance template. This is where I spend most of my time when I'm using the Octatrack for all of my shows. This is the template that I personally use. All these other effects that we're going to go over are a lot more complex than these ones, and they are a little bit more creative because these ones are pretty basic to me, and I wanted basic effects. I just needed the ability to transition from part to part, add some dynamics to my performances, do things like high pass, low pass filter, loop, all those kind of things. This whole section over here with these 3 loopers is a lot of fun, and you can use that very creatively, especially if you're familiar with your boxes. So if you're relying on the Octatrack and the template to make your performance great, yeah, sure, it's going to add some element to it that wasn't there before, there's no doubt. But is it going to make the performance great? I think what's really going to help you is opening up the decay of your hi-hats, taking your kick out, getting familiar with using your Octatrack and your other boxes at the same time. Getting familiar with what kind of buildups don't need effects, and then add the effects on top of it to really make things pop and make things more dynamic. Let's move on to the next part, Explorer. So Explorer has some similar effects, but also a few different ones. So the first one starts off with a Spatial Phaser, is what I'm calling this effect. Mind you, I kind of made these names up. That's just, it kind of created some space, and it was phasey, so I call it Spatial Phaser. So it's using the spatializer and the phaser. There's Spatial Phaser for you. All right, let's keep going. So this next one is called Reverse Echo Freeze. So this is an effect that requires you to have recorded a loop in your record buffers first. So when you start a new song, really all you need most of the time is just that you started during a new pattern or a new larger part of your song. Just make sure you hit yes or hit track 7 plus yes, and that will arm your record buffer so you can capture that audio for later manipulation. So I hit yes. We're gonna get a recording. We could play with effects too. It'll record that into it. So now we have our reverse echo freeze that we can use. So this is a reverse of our live performance. Like I said, this is the exploration part of the template. We could take some stuff out right here. Bring it back in. I honestly love that effect. I think it sounds awesome. All right, so the next one is a high pass half note freeze. So it's like the Daft Punk effect. Well, that's just what I call it. It's a half note freeze with a high pass filter. I can bring some elements back in. Sick, right? Bring some elements back out. Super fluid, very useful. All right, the next one I call Underwater. So this is a version of your performance. It's still in key completely, but it sounds whack, like you're moving through another dimension. Here's another spot where we could be muting and unmuting stuff, or maybe moving over to a different song. You don't want to stop your transport during this effect. You can, however, completely stop transport during the Daft Punk effect and other freeze delay effects because they're independent from the clock. Let me give you an example of that, actually. So actually, there's nothing running. As you can see, the sequencer just stopped. The Daft Punk effect or the high pass half note effect is running. If I move this crossfader, we're gonna go into silence. That's because I have all the machines turned off. Okay, this effect here on number 5 is called a Rhythmic Stutter. I really like this one. There's 2 of them with 2 different speeds. You can go back and forth and play with them like this. back into your song. You have no idea how much I've just been having so much fun making these effects. Okay, so this next effect, because we just went through LFO Rhythmic Stutter and LFO Rhythmic Stutter 2, now we're going to go on to what I call pan pass filter. So it's like a band pass filter, but it's actually going back and forth, taking the left input and the right input, and they're switching spots and going. Anyway, you're going to hear it right now. This is number 7. So it's spread them across. Drums are in your left ear, melodies in your right ear. And it filters it, so you're able to like give people a break and also kind of like split things up. It's kind of cool. Okay, for the next one, this is one of my favorites. This is a really cool effect. There's 2 versions of it in the template. This is the pitch riser. The pitch riser is exactly what you think it is, and just check it out real quick. So we can do it again. Completely in clock. It's gonna start over right now. This is 4 on the floor. So you can do stuff like go with that riser. Use the effect like that. I think that's pretty dramatic and useful. So that's the pitch riser effect. Then we have the high pass, low pass filter. These are different versions. I think it's a little bit more of a deeper low pass, much deeper high pass. Okay, now we have, I'm calling this effect the cave delay. So this is a very short delay of the percussive side, and then some reverb and some filtering. There we go. Found a bug. So this is the cave delay. Let me save that part. So as you can see, there's lots of fun effects in the Explorer part. Okay, for this next effect, I call it the broken tape stop. So it's a much slower version of the tape stop. And there's a lot more filtering going on. Still very cool. Okay. This next one is a 1 octave down modulation instead of a 1/5 down modulation. So as you can see, a lot of the effects share the same position that they were in. If they were doing kind of a similar duty, if they're doing a delay, then I might keep them on a section that already had a delay. If I'm doing a reverb, I'll keep it with the reverbs. That way you can kind of get some muscle memory for some of the effects. Here's a 1 octave down modulation. It's moving at half rate. Hope everyone's doing well. There's still a long way to go. Okay, so this next one, number 13, I'm gonna have to take some time to talk about. This effect is called the mix and match looper. So what this means is that what you can do is you can do some really complex stacking they're not overdubs, but it will work in the same fashion as an overdub. I can record or arm track 5 to record A and B inputs. Well, maybe we could just play with this. Oh, there's no freeze delay on it, right? Okay, well, it doesn't matter. So we have a recording of these 2 machines here, the Digitac and the Syntact. And now if we want, I'm gonna manually affect the digitone just so you can hear that I'm doing something. We're gonna record the digitone now. Okay. So here we are in the mix and match looper. So now we have a recording, a separate recording on 5 and a separate recording on 6, but we're listening to playback of those two separate recordings. So what you could do is you could manually just start messing with this one. We're slowing down the drums. You can speed them up, you can do whatever you want. Or you could have recorded yourself, you know, modulating these boxes manually and moving stuff around. On top of that, you can also be doing that on this side. So now we have the mix and match, but while we're here, we can engage this looper. So now I'm gonna record another recording of this. And I just switched over to that recording. So now we just overdubbed. So this is what happens after a whole bunch of recordings. And now we're out. So that's the mix and match looper. It's a little bit more complex. It takes some more time to getting used to. Maybe it's not something you want to use. I don't know. But I'm sure somebody will find it useful. Okay, this next one is called the Ethereal looper. It loops the recording of this side of things in reverse and lets this play freely. There it is. Tons of effects. That is all of the effects in the Explorer side of things. If you ever experience any sort of pops and clicks or anything like that, that's because there's, for whatever reason, the BPM from the Digitac going into the Octatrack is a little unstable, moving back and forth. So sometimes when the delay buffers are doing their thing and they're looping exactly half notes, the tempo's changing and it skews the time in that and it can create a pop. If you switch over to tape delays, that won't be an issue. However, you may want to adjust the volume if you do that, because you might hear some like unwinding of the tape as you move your crossfader back. All right, we're gonna move over to number 3. This section is called Garage. So 16 more scenes to look at. Well, like I said before, there's a high pass, low pass on every single one of them and a master looper on all of them. So that's why it was a little bit easier for me to construct this. It saved me from recreating a few other effects, but I digress. Let's start with these effects. Start on number 1. This first effect I call the Crunchy Drummer. Cool. This next one is I call Dirty Pass. So like I said, the garage side of things is a much more distorted, kind of dark vibe. And I'm showing you these effects at their maximum value. You can always just do a little bit. Does Turbo MIDI help? Unfortunately not. I wasn't going to read any comments, but that was a good comment because Turbo MIDI is just kind of a joke. Wide Filter Relief is the name of this effect. So some cool effects already on the garage side of things, a completely different flavor from the other effects that we've experienced so far. And I'm just using the same song over and over again because it's the only thing I currently have using two different things because I've been playing in the Syntacct alone for a while as I get to know the Syntacct better. So forgive me, I'm usually a Digitac, Digitone, like hardcore person, but anyhow. All right, So we're still in Garage. We are on number 4, which is a reverse modulated looper requires track 7 plus yes. So we'll hold track 7, hit yes. Let's start this up. Get our recording so we can play with these effects. Cool. So that sounds good. So reverse is in the spot called reverse again. Go figure, right? I'm trying to keep it usable in that fashion. So this next one is called I call it the LFO Filter Drown. It's kind of a basic effect, but I liked how it worked. Could maybe use that for like a little bit of a build-up. Okay, that's LFO Filter Drown. Now we are on what I call the hallway filter. Love when you play dirty. Get out of here. All right. Okay, so that was hallway filter. Now we are looking at the LFO Warble, number 7. So here's a nasty breakdown. Mind you, you have to time these kinds of effects. You cannot use this effect if it's not at the beginning or end, like right at that transition spot. That's where you gotta time it. You're gonna have to use your rhythm. You're gonna have to get a little good. Get good, right? So we can go. And this is building up, right? I think it's a great sounding. I really like that one a lot. Okay, so that was the LFO, Lo-Fi Warble. I called it LFO Warble. That's Lo-Fi Warble. This next effect I call Pitch Decliner. You'll see why. It's in the same spot as the Pitch Incliner, or the Pitch Riser. Here we go. So it does exactly what you expect it to do. You could be muting and unmuting and stuff here. Let's add some elements. All right, we're back at it. So that's the Pitch Decliner. This next one is the low pass, but it's a 12 dB low pass as opposed to a low pass 24 dB. So not as steep of a curb. It's letting a lot more frequencies through. It's a lot louder of a filter that way. All right, and moving on to scene 11. This is the lo-fi drummer with a melodic delay. Like I said, these are the dirty effects in Garage. I just like bouncing across them all so you can just refresh that there's all these crazy different sounds here. Yeah, so that is the lo-fi drummer, I call it. All right, now we're gonna move on to the vintage tape player. This one's really cool. This is number 13. I'm sorry, this is number 12. We're gonna wait for this to go to the next bar. So while the vintage tape player is playing, we can add some more sounds or take some away. So now I've switched to a more exciting part of the song. So that was the vintage tape player. Now we're moving on to half-speed lo-fi. Like I said, you want to time these effects. They are completely synced and they will always work. Some of them you do want to time them because they have to start at the beginning of the phrase. Like this one, for instance. Here we go. I just timed it just right. Now it's working. All right. That would be the half-speed lo-fi looper. So another spot where you can unmute, mute things, transition to a new song, do all sorts of stuff. Just don't stop transport during that effect. Only stop transport during effects that have an asterisk on them, asterisk, a little star. You can stop transport during those effects while they're working. You can hit stop and move to a completely new song if you want to just cut it and go straight to a new BPM that way. Keep that in mind, all right? That's in the documents that come with the template when you get it from my Patreon or from Ko-fi. All right, so this next one is, we're actually going to skip over it. This is an A and B looper, so it's the same idea. The reason why this A and B looper exists, and this one is clean, is because there's so many effects that are for drums. So there's a looper here for playing with drums. So we can hold track 5, hit yes, and play, and then go with like... Now I have that recorded. You can hear that? Just my drums that they got recorded that way. So that is scene 14. Now we're gonna look at scene 15, which is reverse vintage tape player. So it's like the vintage tape player, the tape warble, but playing in reverse. So you could build up to that one, or take this pitch decliner all the way down. And then we could ride this reverse vintage tape player back up to a regular BPM. And we are back in our song. That is Garage. So far we have gone over Remixer, 16 effects in Remixer, 16 effects in Explorer, which works really well with modular synthesis and sort of ambient textures and pretty much anything really, but it excels with those things. And then we have Garage, which is really great for making some dirty techno or just some, some nasty tunes. I don't know. They're just fun effects. Now we're moving on to techno. So all you do to move across these parts, if you want to move to a new section of 16 effects, make sure your crossfader is on the left side so that you don't just jump into an effect at 100%, because sometimes that can sound crazy. Or you might jump into a record buffer that you weren't intending to use, and you'll be playing the song from, the last time you recorded. So you don't want to do that. Just make sure your crossfader's on the left when you switch parts. That's the only thing you need to know. So now we're in techno, and to switch parts, you just hit the part button, use the arrow, select your part, hit yes. Boom, you're done. The first effect in techno is just straight up flanger. So these effects are supposed to be as basic as I could possibly make them. Because techno uses, I don't know, I know that techno and music production in Ableton or Bitwig or wherever you're doing it, we're using all sorts of effects and VSTs and making all sorts of crazy automation and stuff. But here in hardware, we're limited to what the hardware can do. And a lot of original techno, the original techno music, right, was stuff like a 909 through guitar pedals and stuff like that. So here we have our flanger effect. So a pretty basic effect, but useful. You could take out your kick during this effect. just a flanger. Gotta have some basic effects in the template. We can't have all the crazy effects. And also, don't forget, you can turn these effects up manually, and all you have to do is go Function Q to reload the part. So if you make an adjustment that doesn't work and you feel like you broke the template, just don't save the part, hold Function Q, hit Function Q, and you'll reload it back to where I originally made those adjustments. And I will be releasing a new version of the template probably later tonight. This is gonna have some fixes that I just made today, and also a new section I'm calling Expert Mode. And we'll go over that at the very end. Okay, so this next effect is an echo freeze with a phaser. Now, if you don't want the echo freeze to have so much warble to it, it's got a very tape warble-y sensation to it, and that's because it's taking the feedback, or it's moving the time as the crossfader moves, but it's engaging the delay at the very end. So if you really want that to be super clean and sound like very correct to the pitch, just keep the crossfader right here for a second before you engage the echo freezes that are using the tape delay. They sound very nice that way. And these are also effects that you can use to add or remove elements. So I brought the clap back in right there. Okay, so this next effect is the alternate version of the Daft Punk effect. Another way to do a build-up or just get ready to move to your next track, or arm other sounds, make adjustments, open the filter cutoff on your bass line, turn the hats up, or increase the decay, add some more FM to one of your oscillators in your digitone. All right, and this is a reverse. This is a bandpass reverse. So what we're gonna wanna do is arm our recorders so we can have a fresh loop in the buffers. We could play around with some effects first. So that's now in there, and I can arm this bandpass reverse looper. Cool. All right, this next one is called, oh yeah, these are the more simple ones. This is just a delay. This is just a delay on your entire mix. Like I said, this is for techno. So good for build-ups, goes away right when you cut it. So you could just like add an instrument right here and go. I'll demonstrate that again. Here's that delay build-up. Hard cut. Okay, cool. I'm gonna take those elements back out. This next one is a high pass with a delay and a flanger. This is supposed to give your audience some time to like look at their phones, anticipate that something's about to happen in your music, build some drama, build some suspense. Okay. This next one is a high pass with flanger on all of the instruments. It's a nice high pass there. Gotta get some good resonance. Okay, and now we are at what I call hopefully SURCO is in the chat. If those of you who know SURCO, he does a lot of this kind of stuff as well. This effect I made for SURCO. It is a delay into a looper. It's a looper delay into a reverse with a high pass filter. And this is used for transitioning from part to part. So now I was able to bring in another element that way. Cool. So I call that the SURCO riser. For you, SURCO. All right, so this next one is a 12 dB low pass, same as the last 12 dB low pass, except for just slightly adjusted, just to have a little bit of a different texture. So it really like thumps on the kick pretty hard, so you can keep your kicks going there. Good time to do those drum fills. If I had one. High pass. Like I said, very resonant high pass. All right, this next effect is the phase filter. Just a nice high pass filter with a phaser. Then we have a what I call slow burn delay looper. So this is where you would bring in a drop. Or this could be the end of your song. This could be the end of your show. This could be how you end it all. Not end it all, that sounds messed up. And back into it. Good thing to do is find effects that work well together, like an effect that transitions to another effect really well. Like going from 100% to 100% on another effect is a lot of fun, and you can build combos for moving around. You start getting good at this. It's like a whole nother instrument unto itself. All right, so now we are at just a high pass with reverb, number 13. Cool. You got it, dude. You got it. Hey, I asked people what they wanted. You responded, so. Other people could have had effects in the template. I kept saying, you know, what do y'all want? You responded. You got it. All right. So the next one is a resonant bandpass. I actually really like this effect. I was kind of surprised how well it turned out. I might even want to add. Maybe that's not the one I was thinking of, but this is just a nice bandpass filter. All right, and the last one is a reverse, or not last one, but second to the looper, is a reverse 1/5 modulation. Here's how you end a track, right? Sick. All right, and the last one is your classic looper, right? So this records the master track. Like I said, you'll find them on every single part. You'll always find it on number 16. Hold 16, hit that, crossfade over. That's the last thing that was recorded. It's stored in the buffer. It's always there waiting for you. You can do all sorts of tricks with it. You could have something in there that's like maybe just have recorded your intro, and you can fade over to your intro and back, over to your intro and back, over to your intro and back. Make it like you're switching back from record players. You could do some really cool stuff. Have a lot of fun. I hope that everybody enjoyed that demonstration of all 64 effects that you'll find in Remixer 2.0 or Octatrack Performance Template, as I'm calling it now, but originally it was called External Remixer because it was remixing external pieces of gear from the Octatrack. One day, I will sit down and show people how to make all these effects for those of you who don't want to hold the scene button down and select them and just dig through and see how I built them, but some of them are pretty interesting, some of them have some cool techniques. And we'll teach you a little bit about music production in your DAW as well. So I'll just tell you a little bit about how. Let me tell you a little bit about how this came to be, or the concept behind this, and how the effects were written. So I designed the Octatrack to be a performance mixer because I loved the Digitac so much. and I loved my Digitone. But I always felt like I couldn't do anything with them without buying a DJ mixer, and DJ mixers didn't have enough effects for me. It didn't have the kind of effects I wanted to use, because I don't just make like techno and house. I also make stuff that I like to play my guitar with, and so I like some like weirder effects that you're not going to find in a DJ mixer. So the Octatrack, right? I had an Octatrack. I had been using it for music production, and I knew that it was the missing link. It was the modular piece of gear that was going to bridge me over from my guitar singing work into my electronic work, especially with modular. It was all about the Octatrack and modular synthesis with me. As you can see, I have modular. I work at the modular shop. I do video production for a synthesizer shop, and that's what I do. I teach people how to use pieces of gear and make demos so that people get excited about instruments. These instruments, Electron boxes, happen to be my instruments that I'm excited about. And so this is my personal gift to the community, so to speak, and I'm sharing it with everybody. Otherwise, I built this for myself so that I could have a dynamic performance when I perform live, because I would really like to sound good when I play. And this has really helped me along the way, and from all the people that have been using the template and leaving comments, it seems like everybody kind of feels similarly. It's been helping them a lot. Kind of takes you from feeling like you don't know what to do to all of a sudden having all these ways to move around and give you some downtime to move between transitioning from part to part in music, because it's really hard to do that seamlessly with any piece of gear. It really is. It's like the looper aspect, the freeze delay aspect used to make effects makes it really useful for you to be able to unmute and think. And you know what else you can do? You can hold Q. You can just hold the Q button down and you can queue up the inputs, or you could queue up the outputs of these tracks. Either way you want to do it. And you can actually plug your headphones in here and listen to the live instruments on your headphones while you're doing all this stuff. So if you want to create a loop that the audience is listening to, but you want to hear what these machines are still doing, you can do that. The Octatrack lets you do that with its mixer. So you just, have it go out the Q outs, and you listen to these instruments and the effects, and you can make your adjustments. You can open up your hi-hats. You can change your bass line. You could even switch samples. I mean, you could even change projects while the audience is listening to a frozen delay buffer only. You can only do that way, because if it's playing back a recorded loop, then it will stop the time. But that was the idea. So I built this for myself to sound more dynamic, and then ended up sharing it with folks on my Patreon. And the effects are limited to what the Octatrack is capable of doing. And we know the Octatrack has several effects, and we know some of the effects only work in FX2. Some of the effects work on both of the effects channels that you get. So you're very limited to what you can build, but if you're clever and you use the record buffers, you can build some more interesting effects using the freeze delays and the recording buffers, and taking your time to think ahead a little bit. You can create some very dynamic effects. I have tons more effects that are coming. This is just the beginning of the performance template. I have a bunch of more template effects that I've thought of already. I want to make whole templates based off of other concepts like randomization, a template based off of just distortion and destruction. And then I have the expert mode, which I'm going to show you guys in just a little bit. That's all about live resampling. So like we were doing live resampling, but we're talking about live resampling and live remixing, where we're going to take these tracks and we're actually going to change the sequence on the Octatrack so that it's playing back the recordings that we just did in a different order. And we can play with that live without worrying about screwing up our performance. We can actually live remix on the fly, and it's going to sound good no matter what, and you can't screw it up unless you hit stop. Like, it'll just work the whole time. And I think that's going to be really special for people who want to take that extra step and take it to the next level and really sound like you are in control of your music. Like you're in control of your live audio in a way that is really unique to the Octatrack and is just kind of not available in other pieces of gear at the moment, without using a ton of effects pedals in a loop, and I think that would be a lot harder. Although those effects pedals might sound better because they're going to have, you know, newer DSP and better hardware than something that's a little bit older, but you know, we're not complaining, right? So yeah, that's my rant on the Octatrack. I'm trying to think. I was doing a lesson with somebody today, and they asked me all these questions about it, and they were so good. They were really good questions. All right, we're going to go over one last thing. We're going to go over the expert mode on here, which is not complete, but it will be in my release very soon. If not tonight, it will be in tomorrow's. So for those of you on the Patreon, you're going to get this as soon as I'm done with it. For those of you who are buying the template on Ko-fi, I recommend you join the Patreon instead. But if you really want it, go ahead and go on Ko-fi and download it. It's $7. Patreon is $3. So it's up to you. Also, join the Discord. We want you there. Okay, so for this last one, we're going to go to Bank 2, pattern, or Bank B, pattern 1. So this is an exact duplicate of the remixer template. It's got 2 X's on it, except for there's these buffers here are just duplicates of the master recorder. So these buffers are duplicates of the master recorder here, and these record trigs. Thank you to let me find his name really quick because he made me think of this, or he thought of this and reminded me of it. Yeah, where's his message? Oh, never mind. There we go. I was looking at the wrong inbox. Whatever, I can't find it. So, well, anyhow, one of my Patreons suggested, why don't you put your record trigs on one of these tracks that aren't really doing anything, like there's nothing happening on the sequencer, and then I was like, oh, yeah, why didn't I think of that? I just put the trigs over here. The thing is that you have to arm them by holding down track 1 and hitting yes to arm this record buffer. You hold track 3 and hit yes to arm this record buffer, and you hold track 8 and hit yes to arm that record buffer, or you just hit yes and arm them all. And you can see they're recording. Master track's recording, or master track's recording buffer is recording. Master track doesn't play back recording buffers, but it can house recording buffers. Okay, so now I can go over to this scene. You can see that I'm jumping around to slices. So this is randomly jumping around to slices. We could put some more slices in. Let's hold function, hit AED. Let's give it 48 slices, why not? And then we'll go create random locks. Turn time stretch off on these. So you could technically just clear this whole sequence right here and just go just like you can just keep putting random triggers down. Oops. Or you can adjust them manually. So I know it sounded super chaotic, and that's because it's supposed to. It's live it's like completely random. I randomized the slices entirely. So to like have this be super effective, what you would do is you'd hold Q, and you would cue these two tracks, and you send those out to your headphones, and then you can take a live recording and go into your audio editor and chop it during your performance, and then just put down the trigs. And it's actually incredibly effective and really cool. And then you can play with like your amplitude, and you can mess with it and make them just little blips and blops and throw effects on them. You have a reverb on it by default and a filter by default. So that is the expert mode. And why it's expert mode is because there's more steps. You got to hold function, hit AED to slice it. You have to put slices down in your sequence, you have to slice it. You also need to arm it either by pressing yes or track 1 hitting yes, track 3 hitting yes, and track 8 hitting yes. So that will be in the next template. I will have every effect from the other template, the main template there, but I won't have individual recordings of A and B and C and D separated. It will just be 2 recording buffers of the entire mix so that you can just remix the entire thing. If anybody has any comments on that later, message them to me on Patreon. Or you can ask on Discord, I suppose, but I prefer you just ask on Patreon so that it can be more of a forum thing and it moves a little bit slower so I don't have to respond immediately. Okay, so at this point, I've gone over every effect. I've explained how the template works. I will just briefly explain it again for those that are just jumping in. The template works by going to Bank A, Pattern 1, by going to Bank A, Pattern 1, and then changing the parts to different parts and using the effects, using yes or holding track 7 and hitting yes, track 5 hitting yes, track 6 hitting yes, and arming record buffers. In the documentation that comes with the template, I have all of this detailed for you. Every effect tells you the name of the effect, and also whether it's using a freeze delay, so it'll have an asterisk that'll let you know that you can actually stop the transport on the external boxes if you wanted. Not that you would want to, but maybe you do want to. It's kind of cool to do hard stops like that and have the audience keep listening. And it also tells you which tracks you need to arm in order for the effect to work correctly. So there's nothing missing that you don't need, that you wouldn't find either on this stream or in that documentation or on my Patreon. So it should be pretty chill. And this is going to be the quintessential video for this. So all of my mistakes that I've made thus far are all going to be here. Let me see something. Okay. Go arm. All right, cool. I'm going to now answer some questions. So I'm going to make it so I can actually see the chat, because I could barely see it this whole time. And again, thank you to everybody who has supported me on Patreon, who has subscribed to my channel on YouTube, or has bought the template off of Ko-fi, or has joined the Discord and just hung out. You all mean the world to me, and you make you make this a whole hell of a lot more fun. And I'm grateful. So thank you for doing that. All right, I'm gonna look at this chat. There's like just an endless amount of chat that's happened, and I don't think I'm gonna go all the way back and read it all right now on stream. But if anybody has any questions for me, drink water. Is it you? Are you always telling me to drink water? Okay, I'll drink water. Fine. Somebody's always telling me to drink water. Somebody somewhere. Instead of random blocks, you can use a saw LFO, then your LFO speed becomes the pattern. Yeah, you could do that. That's a good point. That's a good point. Lewis says, or no, let's go to Isaac Knoll. I think I have a different way to use the DP effect, if you will. Lewis Collin, you may have covered this, but in the last template, you played the freeze delays and mentioned one-shot trigs to make the beat repeats, and I can't for the life of me figure out how you did it. And used one-shot trigs to make the beat repeats? That's what the Daft Punk effect is. That's this. All right, let me play a little bit of music really quick, and you can get an idea of how this works with something that has multiple parts. recording a 4-bar loop of this. Switching over to it. I'm going to use this to bring in some new sounds. Move to a new part. Move to a new part. Here we go. Check this out. Transition with a riser. Oh, I'm gonna move to a new song. Here we go, new song. We're back to the old song, the one we've been playing with. All right, let's do another transition. Here we go to the darkness. Here we are in a new song. Just an example of how you can use the Performance Mixer template. All of that music is music that I wrote using the Syntakt, primarily. Some of it has a little bit of Digitac, a little bit of Digitone, but it's almost all Syntakt at this point because I've just been diving so deep into the Syntakt. But yeah, I'm building these effects to work specifically with percussion and the melodic side of things. I will have another template that's going to be just for one box that does all things, and it may free up 2 of these tracks for sampling onto the Octatrack so that you can have stereo samples. In that case, it won't be a performance template, more like just a template for workflow in general. But you can also use these cool effects. So here's a cool little trick, Deep House. So when you do these recordings, you arm this recording buffer, right? We got this recording buffer armed. We're recording some stuff. Maybe we like it. So now we're in that recording, right? I mean, we can always manually mess with stuff. We could manually filter it. We could play with the phaser. But also, we can just go function record 3 and go to edit this recording, or I'm sorry, function record 3 and just drop over to save this recording or save all recordings. If I choose save this recording, I can take a snippet of whatever I recorded into the master looper and save that onto my Octatrack. I can save it into the audio pool, or I can save it into my project file and have a bunch of loops. So what I could do is record all some crazy stuff. This is exceptionally important. You can take this template over to your modular synthesizer and run it into this and use these effects and then record them into the recording buffer and save them onto your Octatrack. You know, keep them in key. Keep your modular in key. Get a tuner. For God's sake. But you can do that, and you can save those recordings, and then you can chop them up later in a different project. Or you can bring them into your computer. It's just a great way. Like, you're doing these live effects, you're playing with delays and all this stuff that's already prepared for you, and then you can just record that affected music. You don't have to do recordings of the dry version of your Eurorack or whatever piece of gear you're using. You can do the affected version that you performed out and have that recording. So I think that's really special, and that's what I do with my other Octatrack over here. Yes. So this one plays with my little ambient section of the system here. That's where I make noises, usually pretty noises with that system, but that's the idea. It's for sampling. But, oh man, I'm just glad that I've, for the mostly completed this, and it just was a lot of work. It's not a tuna. I really like that joke. So yeah, that's it. I think that's all the tutorial stuff I'm going to do. We did a performance. You got to see what happens when you move from song to song, from moving from part to part. Explained every single one of the effects, all 64 of them. Explained the expert mode that'll be shipping with my newest version. Once I have expert mode completed, and I've gone through and made sure every single effect works exactly the way I want it to. I've already heard some that I want to make minor adjustments to. I will be doing a 1.0 release, which won't mean anything to you on Patreon, but it may mean something to people on Ko-fi. I think I might make it cost a little bit more. I don't know. I've just put too much. I put so much energy and time into this. I don't really know though, and I'm being very transparent with YouTube right now and everybody listening. But that was kind of the idea. But I hope everyone uses it and has a whole lot of fun. And please don't give it away to everybody, but please do share what you do with it. I love when I see snippets of audio that people have made using the performance template. I love seeing what people have done to augment it or reverse engineer the effects on it, and have, I know it's taught people a lot about the Octatrack. I learned so much about the Octatrack designing this. I dove into effects on this performance template specifically. I dove into effects I had never used before, really, like in my music, just because I was like, it doesn't really fit my style. Well, after diving into them enough, I found the sweet spots here and there in the spatializer, and the sweet spots on the phaser and the flanger on the Octatrack, and I've had a really good time with it. Definitely getting this. Oh, cool. Glad to hear it. All right. Now I'm going to go over and look at chat again, since I was on a tangent. The template with the M8. Scott says, I love the template with the M8. Yes, I do too. The only issue with the template, or with the Octatrack and them, or any piece of gear with the M8 that's receiving clock and transport, is that ticks don't translate to MIDI. Like the BPM does, but ticks don't. So if you change the tick rate on your trackers, it will have a different BPM on the machines listening to it. So that's something you need to... Patreon number 411. How do you know that? How? Does it alert that? Thanks for joining the Patreon, Nala. That's definitely where I want to see people at, because they're going to get new versions. I hate the idea that people buy the template from me and then they're like, oh, this thing didn't work. It's like the Patreon. That's where it's at. Go to the Patreon. I keep doing updates. You can give me feedback. I can talk to you. It's also $3 instead of $7 or $10 or whatever I end up doing on Ko-fi. Ko-fi is super new to me. I've always been about Patreon. I still am, and that's why I'm trying to deter you from going there, but I don't want to stop people from getting it that don't want to be on subscriptions. But I'd rather get way less money from people and have a community and a discussion so that people can get a better product from me or a better version of the template. Because those updates, they really matter. They really do. Sometimes the effects don't sound perfect, you know, and I want to adjust that. Trying to read this chat, but my eyes are just, and my dog, my eyes and my dog. My whole life has been out of key. Your Mixer TX6 just got there. Ooh, Mr. Ravioli. Mr. Ravioli, it's Mr. Butters. Have you tried connecting Bluetooth to your OT and control it via iPad? No. I have not. Probably, you know, I'm down with that idea of the MIDI Bluetooth thing. And I'm interested to try that with OP1 Field when it finally gets here. Whenever that happens. But no, I haven't. I don't really use my computers or iPads or cell phones with my music, and that's not because I'm like some goober about like I refuse. It's just because I am really comfortable here and I really enjoy this process, and I don't want to add another element that's just like I have access to every single app on the App Store, and just like all that stuff, it's just too much for me, and it overwhelms me, and then I don't do anything. It stagnates me. You've done a ton already. Super appreciate it so much. Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. I need to set it up myself so that I understand it all better. That's a really good idea, Isaac. I think the best way to really learn the ins and outs of like the Octatrack and these other pieces of gear is, one, teach someone else how to do it. That's probably the best way. I can't tell you how many times I've had somebody ask me something I didn't know the answer to, and I guarantee you the next time they met me or talked to me, I did know. I knew, because I remember not knowing when I wanted to be the one who knew, and that didn't feel right to me. So I would, teaching you gives you that incentive to like pay attention to the nitty-gritty details. And also makes you memorize things, because you remember that session where you're like, oh, remember this? You know, you're explaining it. You're having to think it through while you explain it. The other thing is reverse engineering. It's the same idea as when you learn a song. Like, you want to learn how to play guitar? Well, I'm going to start playing Nevermind by Nirvana first. Okay, well, now you just learned how to, you know, how to pick with your guitar pick. You learned a little bit of rhythm. And, you know that song, and now you know some chords, right? That's the same idea. You learn somebody else's stuff, opens it up to you. I also need to heed those words, because that would really help me. I've just been doing this for so long. Yeah, time for glasses. Well, it's also the screen is, you know, it's a little ways away from me because I wanted to not have it in front of the camera. That's part of the reason. But I am squinting. And I do have glasses, and I really do need them. Music Theory 101, get a tuner. Okay, let's see what else is going on. Is it okay to use the OT as a master? That's how I've been using it. Yeah. Well, are you referring to as a master clock? Now, if you're Octatrack, if you're going to use the template that I've made, which is what this stream is all about and what this video will be all about, then you're going to want to use an external clock as your master clock. You're not going to want to use your Octatrack as the master, because then you're going to have to make copies of the pattern on every single step. So every step you'd make a copy of the current pattern and assign a part to that pattern. That's not the point of the mixer. The point of the mixer is to perform out with these effects and make adjustments, manual adjustments, reload parts, and then switch parts for the other effects. So that's really important. If you want to use these effects in a performance with the Octatrack being a master clock, the best thing to do would be to save this template as new and then alter it to what you want, or reverse engineer the effects so that you understand how to build them yourself from scratch. That's probably the best thing that you could do, because it will make you feel like you know the Octatrack a whole lot better. Would love to watch stream with your ambient noise OT and modular setup. Really? People want to watch that? I just like the portable approach towards making music, pushing the boundaries with my that's my chocolate. Okay. I mean, I like that too. I mean, I have an M8 in my backpack always. I have an Octatrack at work. I have an OP1. Well, I had an OP1 till I sold it to get the OP1 field. And I bought the OP1 field the morning it was released, and I still have not gotten shipping. That's frustrating. I'm not good at explaining things to others. I try, but I always fuck something up. My brain is cats and squirrels. Isaac Knoll said. I think it's just practice. I was a drug counselor for a while. That's what I did before I did music production videos. I was always doing music. I also did music counseling. So I was a drug counselor that worked with instruments with adults struggling with drugs and alcohol. So I've kind of been in a position of teaching for a while. That's something I've gotten used to doing. And also how to do it without being a jerk. That's something that takes a little practice, having patience. Thanks again, Matt, for being so responsive and for all the hard work you have put into this. I've said it before, but you totally revolutionized my live sets with this, and it just keeps progressing. I'm super glad to hear that. I have some really cool stuff in the works outside of Electron with my company Modbang. If you don't know Modbang, I make these glow-in-the-dark patch cables. They're super dope. I just redesigned the right angle plugs, so they are very short, very shallow, and very usable. So that's going to be great. Those aren't here yet. Also, glow-in-the-dark MIDI cables are coming from Modbang. You find the cool Modbang logo on there too. But I have some other cool stuff coming, perhaps some instrument stuff coming from Modbang. It's going to be a little while though, but I think everyone will be excited when it finally arrives. Yeah, thanks everyone for the comments, for the compliments, and the comments, for the compliments in the comments. Your parts have all the same machines. They have the same machines. They do. They have to share the machines because if you transition from part to part and don't have the same machines, it becomes an issue. However, they don't have the same machines functioning the same way. Some of them have time stretch turned off. Some of them have loop turned off. Some of them have slice turned on. Some of them have different insert effects. All the parts have different insert effects in different places on the machines because they're making different effects. The effects work in serial, and the scenes are just macros for those effects that are working in serial. So, yes. I have been sober for 2 years, Matt, and I have a decent amount of time to do with that. All right, that's what I'm talking about. Good for you, man. That is cool. I work with addiction and also have thought about incorporating music. Hey, you should. It can be a little embarrassing with adults, though. You know what I mean. Chance, I have those cables, and I didn't know you made them. Oh, good. That's my favorite. When people don't know it's me, and then they find out, it's pretty cool. For me, I've had this company for a couple years. While we're here, I'll just tell you a short story about how Modbang came about. So I was going to school for music production. I moved back here from Florida after having spine surgery. I have a triple fusion in my neck. It's very uncomfortable. And I was recovering, so I came home where my family was. My family could take care of me. I'm from Seattle, but I was living in Florida. And decided I was going to go back to school and, do some music production stuff. Wanted to get better at music theory and just, have a pro give me the basics, essentially. And that's really what it was, a pro giving me the basics. One of my instructors was Dave Bristow. He's the godfather of the DX7. He made a lot of the patches for the DX7, so that was kind of a cool experience working with him. But I had this one class where we had to get certified in Logic Pro on Apple, right? I'm a PC user, so it really didn't matter to me. I was a PC user. I am an Apple user now, but I'm still using Bitwig because I am a Bitwig instructor, so I'm just sticking with it. But so I was in this Logic Pro class. It was about 9 hours long every day. 5 days a week, 9 hours a day. It was the lamest class I've ever been in. And my instructor was not great. not a great instructor. To those instructors that maybe are watching this from that school, I love you, and you probably know who I'm talking about. But anyway, the class was lame, and it was super long, and it was every day. And I was like, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to start a company. I'm going to start a company instead of doing this class. So what I would do is I would just burn through all the schoolwork in the first 2 hours and have 7 hours every day to do whatever I wanted. And that's what I did. All summer long, I built a modular Eurorack cable company, and anyway, that was years ago, and now we have several colors. I started out with 2 colors of glow-in-the-dark cables, and now I'm designing my own cable variants with brand new plugs that are more performative, and putting a lot more, all the money that the company has made, I've completely reinvested into the company. I've never taken any money for myself, except for it does pay for my internet bill. But every penny has just gone back into it as I try and grow it and try and make better patch cables that are cooler and more fun for performance. And it's been a really fun experience. I love working in Eurorack. I love working in electronic music, and I love just being a part of the culture and the community. So stoked to share that with everybody. It's a cute story, and it's a true story. Modbang 1/4" TRS right angles? Not right now. Yes, but not right now. I am going to be doing 1/4" patch cables for your patch bays that are going to be glow in the dark. Our thing is we make glow in the dark cables. A new cable that I am coming out with that doesn't glow in the dark is I'm going to be doing completely, fully transparent MIDI cables. I think they're going to look super dope, actually. They're not going to glow, but they're just going to be completely see-through. And I have a lot of MIDI cables, so to have these see-through patch cables is actually going to look super nice on camera and just in general, right? And they're going to refract the light that you have shining on I don't know, just fun stuff. I have a lot of fun with it. Modbang XLR, that's a ways off, Calderwood. That's a ways off. I don't know about XLR cables. Those are expensive. You know, we're a little company. Patch cables are right up our alley. Isaac just got 17 years on the 17th. All right, good for you, dude. I decided I needed to stop killing. Yeah. Well, that's a good conversation to have. Yeah. A very familiar one. After nearly finishing a bachelor's degree, I got exactly what you're talking about without knowing the details. Yeah. Yep, you get it. Modbang bubbly water. Now we're talking. That's a good idea. Well, I'm glad. Oh, you're welcome for sharing. I do love to share a good story. The company actually started off as, this is true. The company started off as a gallery. So I was like, you know what people really like to do? They like to look at each other's modular systems. And mind you, this was 3.5 years ago, about, I think. And well, anyway. So what I did is I went into modular Facebook groups, and I went to all my favorite photos that people shared in the groups, and I private messaged them, and I said, hey, do you mind if I share your image and give you credit to your social platform, your social media, and for your photo, where I take 0 credit, but I just want to host your image so people can go and view this. And I got hundreds of people that said yes. It was a lot of work. It was pretty frustrating. It was just a lot of work. And so I built this gallery where people could just go and look at other people's setups and then find their music too. And it was a really cool idea. I have since taken the gallery down because the company has turned into a retail company, and I felt like it was a little inappropriate. But I will be reinstating the gallery. However, it will just be showing off people that are using Modbang cables, because that makes sense. But I did do that, and that's how the website started, and it wasn't selling anything. I was asking for a donation if people wanted to for my work, for hosting their images and hosting links to their music, but nobody wanted to donate. So I stopped asking for donations and just did it for free, and eventually started selling the cables. And then, a couple years later, the gallery is now not active, but I still have it, and I still have all the photography, and it's actually still on the website. It's just a hidden page. But it's cool. Got some cool people on there. I have Daniel Troberg from Electron. I got his modular system, was one of the last people that I asked when he traded me a boutique synthesizer by Roland, I think SH101A, and some modular that I wasn't using, and I got his Analog Rhythm Mark 1. And that was a trade that we made on Electronauts. It was actually really funny. He messaged me on Electronauts, and I was trying to sell some stuff, and he was like, I work for Electron. And I was like, yeah, right. And so, like, I looked him up. I didn't realize who Daniel Troberg was at the time. This was like 4 or 5 years ago, I think. Or no, this is three years ago. And lo and behold, it was the CEO of Electron that traded with me, who's no longer there. Or CFO. I think it was the CEO at the time of Electron, yeah. And so that's another cool story. I'm just telling stories at this point because we're done. We're done doing music stuff right now. I'm exhausted. Let's go back to the chat. Hope everybody likes this look I've got going on. I've been spending so much time playing in color grades and cameras. Is something that I also geek out on, is lenses and color grading a bit and film. And I started off as, you know, such an amateur at this stuff for so long, and it's like there's a couple of key moments, just like with music, that you break through and suddenly you go from like looking really amateur to looking like you're not, and it's bizarre. You're like, whoa, it was such a simple thing, I needed to adjust, you know. And it's really not that far out of reach. This is actually a really good time to talk about something that I've needed to mention. There is a company that I'm going to be working with starting next week called Expert Tips, ZIP for short, XIP. And you can actually get some services from me, kind of like my Patreon. So you can get one-on-one lessons. You can do some video calls with me if you have questions about stuff. Like just electronic music gear in general, you're needing some help, you can actually do these one-on-one video chats where we don't chat live. You just record yourself asking a question, you say send, and it sends it, and then I get a notification that says, hey, this person has a question for you, and I do a video response back to you. So you can subscribe to this service, or you can just do a one-time thing. It's a new company, it's really cool, I'm excited about it. And I think it's going to be something that other educational folks in the music arena are really going to be excited about too. And just to talk about music that way, but also just to help folks. So you can check that out. There will be a link to it in the description of my videos forthcoming, and also on my website and in the Discord. So if you're interested in that. Oh, you remember that. Still doing the monthly Modbang giveaway for posting pictures. I would love to continue to do that. I just haven't had time to ask people for photos and then curate them on the website. So that was one of my favorite things, but it was a time-consuming thing. And, you know, there is 24 hours in the day is not enough. Like, it's just not. You know? It's still a little too fuzzy for my taste. When are the Eurorack covers coming back? Wow, you guys are really figuring it out. Those are coming back. They are coming back. I'm actually thinking about, so we were manufacturing those Eurorack covers that are available on Modbang, or were available on Modbang. Sephra, my partner, she is an amazing talent and just learns things really quickly. And Sephra learned how to sew. And we designed, it took us a long time. She designed mostly. I just kind of was like, it's got to be able to do this. It needs to achieve this size so it can go over a 6U case or a 7U case. And she designed these Eurorack covers, and we used water-resistant material, so ripstop nylon, and put them on Eurorack covers. And you could wash them, and you could spill your water on them, and they were like $40, $45, $50. Some of them looked really cool. And they were like either dust covers, or we had the more outdoor ones, which weren't rugged, but they just kept water and gunk off your modular gear, because people love to take their modular outside and make videos, because it's fun to, you know, bring electronic gear into the woods. Same reason we put plants in all our videos, because it just looks so sterile with these boxes and stuff. We need some like organic life. Time is an illusion. Would love a soft Modbang Eurorack cover. I bet you would, Jordan. My biggest hurdle is space with my setup. It's hard when you don't have a dedicated studio area. It's true. It's true. All right. Well, I'm pretty sure I covered everything I intended to cover today. Along with this long banter at the end, which I will keep in the video stream backlog for those to watch and listen to these silly stories. I appreciate everybody here, and you're all wonderful. Oh, what am I doing? I'm playing with the chat window in OBS. I'm always having trouble with the chat window in OBS because it's just such a wonky window. Can you just lock yourself in place, please? Okay, there we go. No, that doesn't work. Maybe down here? Yeah, that works. Ish. Oh, you just ordered the Octatrack t-shirt? Yeah, so my friend Ray, who is the photographer at Patchworks, designed that for me. I commissioned that t-shirt. So that's original artwork by an actual artist. Yeah, so on that note, I'm going to let you guys go. Thank you, everyone. I hope that explains how the performance template works. Expect there to be tons of updates. I'm going to be making all sorts of iterations on the template. There's going to be tons and tons of new effects, different versions of it, stuff that works with one machine, stuff that works with multiple machines, stuff that works with 4 machines. Maybe I want to have a template that is separate effects for 4 different machines. Yeah, I'm probably going to make that. That's the kind of stuff that I like to do. Probably going to make one that's just for modular, one that's just for the Syntact, one that's just for the analog rhythm. I've actually already done that. So there is one for the analog rhythm. And I actually already have a scene that isn't available. I'll put it on my Patreon at some point for the Faderfox EC4 that turns your analog rhythm into kind of like an Octatrack. But anyway, enough on that. Yeah, everybody, you're welcome. Thank you very much. I'll see you on the Discord. Please join. Again, you want the template? Patreon.com/EZBOT. You want the template? Ko-fi.com/EZBOT. If you just want to support me, Patreon.com. Or if you just want to hang out for free and not have to pay any money to anybody and not even think about money stuff, just go ahead and join the Discord. It's completely free, no expectations. Come and hang out, have conversation with us. We'd love to have you there. It's a very safe place. It's it's pretty PG in terms of like what we're discussing there. We're just talking about music gear. Nobody's being weird. For the most part, there's no politic conversations or religious conversation, any of that kind of stuff. We're just talking about music gear, technique. Sometimes people are talking about video games. Whatever. Come and hang out with us and chat. I'm Matthew, aka EZBOT. I'll see you guys next time. As soon as I can figure out